Ladies and gentlemen, there are truths that echo louder in silence than in words. Beneath the surface of the spoken, within the quiet chambers of behavior, the unconscious whispers its secrets. One such secret is love unconfessed, yet revealed. A man may guard his heart with silence, but the soul, ever honest, betrays him in gesture and glance. The psyche, complex and layered, rarely allows the truth to remain hidden for long. Today we peer into the hidden language of affection, the subtle betrayals of a man in love, unvoiced, yet profoundly spoken through 5 unmistakable signs. The gaze is a mirror of the soul, an ancient gesture that predates language and defies the boundaries of conscious restraint. When a man is in love but does not name it, his eyes betray him more profoundly than any spoken confession ever could. Unlike the fleeting, distracted glance of politeness or casual conversation, this gaze lingers with an almost imperceptible reverence. It holds stillness, not out of hesitation, but out of a quiet awe. He looks as if the world has momentarily fallen away, and you have become the axis around which his thoughts now revolve. This is not the gaze of a man analyzing or judging, nor is it the empty stare of desire. It is contemplative, soaked in curiosity, saturated with questions he cannot ask but longs to answer within himself. He looks at you not as one might look at an object of beauty, but rather as one who senses something sacred in your presence. He searches for meaning in your expressions, interpreting every movement of your face, every subtle shift in your eyes. The gaze becomes an archetypal bridge, a silent ritual of devotion performed unknowingly, yet unavoidably. It is the psyche reaching outward, calling towards something it perceives as deeply significant, but cannot yet consciously integrate. This gaze does not ask for reciprocation, though it may momentarily flicker away in shyness when caught. The moment his eyes are seen, a faint disorientation might follow, for he did not intend to be noticed. His gaze had slipped from his control, an honest fragment of the soul making itself known. It is not unusual for such a man to glance often and then withdraw quickly, almost as if protecting something delicate. This contradiction, of being drawn and yet afraid, speaks to an inner conflict between ego and shadow, between desire and the fear of vulnerability. His eyes return to you in intervals, not as an act of surveillance, but as a kind of gravitational pull. In a group, his attention may scatter like everyone else's, but there will be moments when his focus finds its way back to you without effort. These are not choices made with awareness. They arise spontaneously, the result of an unconscious orientation toward what the psyche deems meaningful. There is also something unguarded in the way he looks at you, something that hints at admiration untainted by calculation. Unlike the glances exchanged in games of seduction, which are often performed with strategy and self-consciousness, this look is vulnerable in its simplicity. It holds no agenda except presence. It may happen during quiet moments, perhaps when you are not even speaking, perhaps while you are looking away. These are the moments when he feels least observed and most safe to let his true attention rise to the surface. In these intervals, the unconscious expresses what the conscious mind still attempts to hide. He is unaware that his gaze has deepened, unaware that his eyes are reflecting a tenderness he has not yet named. This kind of attention does not fade quickly. Even when conversation drifts to others, or the room grows noisy, he might find himself drawn back into that silent observation, as if your presence reactivates something dormant in him. It is not obsession, but a quiet returning, a psychic movement that repeats itself not by choice but by necessity. To him, you have become a symbol, an image loaded with emotional charge. He may not know why, but your presence activates a deeper part of his inner world, stirring not just attraction, but meaning. He is looking for something, perhaps not in you directly, but in what you awaken within him. The gaze becomes a search, an exploration, a wordless dialogue between his outer awareness and his inner longing, and still he says nothing. The body, unlike the tongue, lacks the ability to lie with precision. It reveals what the conscious mind resists, what the ego attempts to repress, and what the heart silently aches to express. When a man harbors unspoken love, his physical form begins to bend and shape itself in ways that defy deliberate control. These shifts are subtle, often imperceptible to those unaware, but to the attentive observer, they are loud with meaning. He might not say a word, yet his shoulders square when you enter a room, his spine unconsciously elongates, as if standing taller will somehow bring him closer to your attention. It is not vanity nor performance, but rather a kind of intuitive readiness, a posture of alertness that suggests something within him is rising in your presence. There is a magnetic orientation that develops, where his body naturally inclines toward you even in the midst of distraction. In a room full of people, he may face the speaker, but his torso subtly turns in your direction. His feet might point your way, an old evolutionary tell that signals interest and alignment even before the brain has fully grasped why. These small shifts are not choreographed, not rehearsed, but emerge from an ancient part of the psyche that seeks proximity to what it values. The unconscious mind speaks through such alignments, arranging limbs and gestures like symbolic offerings to something he reveres yet fears to name even in rest. The body finds ways to express attachment. He leans in, not dramatically, but gently, almost imperceptibly, closing the space between you as if drawn by an invisible thread. The angle of his stance narrows toward you, and his hands may fidget not from discomfort, but from a kind of internal stirring, a subtle activation of energy that he does not know how to direct. The body is energized by the presence of the beloved, not in a manic way, but as if it suddenly carries more meaning, more urgency, more vitality. These changes are not decisions. They are impulses rooted in emotional truths deeper than cognition. He may mirror you without realizing it. If you cross your legs, he might do the same a few moments later. If you touch your face or shift your weight, he unconsciously echoes these movements. This mirroring is not mimicry, but a sign of deep rapport. It signals that his inner world is tuning itself to yours, as though trying to establish harmony through the rhythm of gesture. The need for connection leaks through his movements, guided by a longing he may not have the language for. The body becomes a translation of the emotional field, and when love stirs beneath silence, that field is charged with tension, desire, hope, and restraint. There are moments when he seems to freeze or hesitate, as if caught between motion and stillness. Perhaps he begins to step forward and then stops, unsure if presence will betray his feelings. This stutter in the body is not confusion, it is conflict, a collision between what he wants to express and what he fears will be revealed. His hands may reach for something, perhaps to assist you, to gesture toward shared space, and then withdraw as if he remembered the rules he has imposed upon himself. These physical contradictions are not signs of weakness, but the visible effects of emotional depth restrained by internal boundaries. He may find excuses to be near you, not dramatically, not possessively, but with a quiet persistence. He stands close enough to hear you clearly, to pass you a cup, to brush against your arm without violating distance. These are not strategies, but gravitational behaviors, as if his body responds to a pull stronger than politeness, a pull rooted in something sacred. The nearness is not invasive, it is reverent. It is the body's silent confession of what the lips cannot articulate. In those moments, proximity becomes presence, and presence becomes a silent ritual of connection expressed not in words, but in the sacred language of gesture, posture, and space shared without explanation or demand, there is something ancient in the instinct to protect, something woven into the very structure of the masculine psyche, a timeless pattern that emerges not from taught behavior, but from a deeper, unconscious calling. When a man is silently in love, this instinct awakens not in grand gestures or declarations, but in small, almost invisible acts of care. He begins to notice things others overlook, not because he is trying to impress or gain favor, but because something within him has begun to assign value to your well-being, to see your safety and comfort as quietly sacred. These moments pass quickly, yet they carry weight, meaning far beyond their surface. He moves your coffee cup away from the edge of the table with a casual touch, not drawing attention to the act, not expecting recognition, only moved by a subtle tension he feels at the thought of something happening to what belongs to you. When you walk together, he positions himself between you and the street, not as a calculated move, but as a bodily reaction, a reflex of care that has no language but speaks clearly in the language of intention. He is not performing chivalry. He is responding to something he feels without needing to explain it to himself or anyone else. It is not about being seen as protective, but about being moved by a silent priority that has begun to reorder his responses to the world. When you are near, these gestures do not announce themselves. They arrive wrapped in normalcy. He notices when you're cold and offers his jacket before you realize you're shivering. He remembers the things that make you anxious and takes quiet steps to ease those burdens when the opportunity arises. He steps in not with drama, but with presence, often choosing to do so when no one else is watching. These are not attempts to win affection. They are expressions of affection already present, flowing out from the unconscious with an ease that only sincerity allows. He is, in these moments, not driven by obligation but by resonance, by the strange and powerful feeling that your comfort matters more than his convenience. Even when he remains silent, he observes with the vigilance of someone attuned to more than just his own needs. His awareness sharpens around you, not in a way that dominates, but in a way that quietly follows your emotional cues. He notices when you grow quiet, when your energy shifts, and though he may not ask directly, his behavior changes subtly in response. He might stay a little longer, offer help without being prompted, or simply remain present, as if his very being wants to act as a buffer between you and whatever weight you might be carrying. His presence becomes a form of shelter, one he constructs without fully understanding why. These protective instincts are not limited to physical gestures. They extend into how he defends your name when you're not around, how he listens when you speak about something that matters to you, how he remembers the details you thought were small. Protection in this form is not always about shielding from danger. Sometimes it is about honoring your inner world, about creating space where your thoughts and feelings are held with respect. He begins to curate an invisible space around you, one where he can support your strength without trying to control it, where he can be near enough to offer stability without intruding upon your autonomy. It is in this tension between presence and restraint that the unconscious makes itself known. He doesn't declare, doesn't demand, doesn't dramatize. He acts, not with certainty but with sincerity, guided by something older than logic and more enduring than desire. In each act of care, however minor, his affection breaks through the surface of silence and reveals itself not as a need, but as a commitment already forming in the background of his being, seeking expression through every small effort to make your path gentler, your moment safer, your presence somehow honored without the need for explanation or reward. Laughter, at its deepest level, is not merely a response to humor, but a social signal, an emotional thread that binds people together in moments of shared recognition. When a man is secretly in love, his laughter around you transforms into something far more nuanced than amusement. It becomes a kind of offering, a bridge built not just with sound but with intention. He laughs not only at what is funny, but also at what draws you into comfort, into openness, into a moment where his joy might spark your own. It is not the loud or boastful laugh of one trying to dominate a room, but rather the attentive, responsive kind that listens before it reacts, that tunes itself to your rhythm and mirrors your energy with subtle fidelity. You may notice that he laughs more freely when you are the one speaking, even when your words are not meant to be humorous. This is not forced, not exaggerated, but rather a spontaneous delight that rises in him because it is you who has spoken. Your presence seems to activate something within him that softens the edges of his internal world, allowing his joy to surface with an ease that feels rare and uncalculated. He is not laughing to impress, but because you have become a source of warmth to him, a presence that pulls his spirit out of guardedness and into lightness. In this way, laughter becomes his safest expression of affection, a space where vulnerability can briefly pass without being questioned or exposed, even when others are present. His laughter carries a directional quality, subtly seeking your face, waiting for your reaction, hoping that your smile will match his and validate a moment of unspoken closeness. He may glance at you in the middle of a shared joke, not to see if you found it funny, but to silently share the joy with you first, as if your response carries more emotional weight than the laughter of anyone else. His delight is not complete until it resonates with yours. This isn't manipulation or performance, but a natural byproduct of affection that has grown roots beneath his awareness. The emotional synchrony he seeks through shared laughter is not about entertainment. It is about connection, resonance, and a longing for attunement. There are also quieter forms of laughter that emerge. Those halves, miles when you speak passionately about something, those soft chuckles when he notices a quirk in your behavior that he finds endearing but would never mention aloud. These moments are not grand, but they are deeply revealing. They expose the intimacy that has developed within him, the way he has begun to hold pieces of you within his emotional landscape. These small expressions of joy are sacred because they arise not from the need to be seen, but from the sheer pleasure of seeing you, hearing you, being near you. And yet, this laughter is not always easy. Sometimes it comes with a trace of nervousness, an edge of hesitation, because with every moment of shared joy comes the quiet fear that he is revealing too much. The unconscious knows that laughter is a door left slightly ajar, and through it, glimpses of his affection may slip out before he is ready to name them. So he laughs and then looks away, or he laughs and quickly shifts the subject, as if trying to regain control over what his emotions have begun to express on their own. There is vulnerability in this, the kind that belongs not to weakness, but to someone caught between the pull of emotion and the pressure of silence. And within all of this, laughter becomes not just a response, but a symbol. It is the unconscious reaching out, testing the safety of emotional territory, measuring how far it can go before retreating again. When he laughs with you, what he offers is not entertainment but entry, a brief, flickering doorway into the affection he carries but cannot yet voice. It is in these moments, when his laughter dances at the edge of his restraint, that love reveals itself most clearly, not in what is said, but in the sound of joy that seeks yours before it seeks his own. He returns again and again, not with dramatic entrances or carefully crafted reasons, but with quiet consistency that defies coincidence. A man in love who has not spoken his feelings becomes subject to a magnetic pull he does not fully understand, and this draw manifests not in words, but in patterns of presence. You begin to notice that he is simply there often, gently, without making a scene of it. He shows up in spaces where you are likely to be, in moments that seem unplanned but repeat themselves with a rhythm too steady to be random. His presence becomes familiar, not in a forced or intrusive way, but like a soft echo that follows you, always a few steps behind but never far. He asks how your day was, not out of habit, but out of real curiosity. He remembers what you told him in passing, a project you were anxious about, a place you were planning to visit, a small detail about your week, and circles back to it not to impress, but because it stayed with him. These small check-ins are not scheduled. They come when he feels drawn to reach out, when the silence stretches too long, and something in him wants to make sure you are okay. There is no demand in his presence, only a kind of emotional gravity that keeps him orbiting around your world, drawn not by logic, but by something deeper, something rooted in affection. He has not yet dared to confess. His return is not always physical. Sometimes it is digital, a message, a reaction, a shared thought sent just because it reminded him of you. These touches, though small, reveal a continuity of thought, a presence that extends beyond shared space and into private moments. You have become part of his inner landscape, a figure who arises in his thoughts not as a fleeting distraction, but as a quiet presence that lingers. He may not know what he hopes for when he reaches out, but the impulse is always there, gently pushing him to bridge the space between you, to reconnect even in subtle ways that don't betray the full depth of what he feels. He returns not only in moments of ease, but also in moments when you are in difficulty. If you mention something troubling, he appears more present, more grounded, more willing to stay even when there is nothing he can fix. His impulse to return is strongest not when you shine, but when you stumble, when you show the parts of yourself that are raw or uncertain. This is where the unconscious speaks most loudly, through his refusal to look away, through his silent offering of steadiness when you expect withdrawal. He may not say the right words, and he may struggle to offer advice, but he stays. That staying is not accidental. It is a form of devotion that emerges before words have given it shape. There are also moments when he seems to arrive without any clear reason, when he appears at places where his presence is not strictly necessary. He doesn't offer much explanation, just a shrug, a smile, a vague comment about being in the area. But the truth is that something within him guided him there. His return is never announced, but always felt. Over time, these moments accumulate, and the pattern becomes clear. He is not lingering because he has nothing else to do. He is returning because something in him feels at home in your presence, because being near you answers a need he cannot name without breaking the delicate structure of silence he has built around his feelings, even when he tries to stay away. He finds reasons to come back. The distance never lasts. His unconscious does not permit complete retreat, whether it's under the guise of checking in on a mutual friend, needing help with something trivial, or sharing something he knows will make you smile. He finds a path back into your day. These gestures are small, but their meaning is vast. They are not requests for your attention. They are expressions of longing disguised as coincidence. Each return is a quiet declaration, a wordless reminder that you have become the center of a silent orbit, one that turns not by force, but by feeling too powerful to resist or fully understand. And so, we learn, silence is not absence. Love, when true, is rarely born in the clear light of conscious speech. It begins in the shadow, in symbols, in gestures that bypass thought and speak directly from soul to soul. He does not say it, but he is in love. The psyche reveals what the lips withhold. To those who see with more than eyes, these 5 gestures become a silent symphony of affection. Pay attention, not to words, but to symbols, for where the unconscious speaks, the truth resides. Thank you.